What is up, everybody? It is your local Ottawa fan, and I'm here today to talk to you about the huge 5-2 win over the New York Sirens. And I'm happy. I'm happy. But this is part one of what needs to be a two-part video. It needs to be a two-part video. We have a home and home with New York. We played in New York. We went to New York in the Prudential Center, technically New Jersey, and we won. Honestly, we won convincingly. I have some thoughts, but we won convincingly. You look at the score, you look at how towards the end of the third period it was kind of game over. We won. This is irrelevant if we go into TD Place on Tuesday and just lay a stinker and get mollywopped, or have a good game but not a good enough game and we get another loss. We need to win both. We had a similar situation earlier this season, didn't we? We had technically it was a takeover tour in home, but Minnesota was the home team for the takeover tour. We had back-to-back games against Minnesota. A Minnesota game, then another Minnesota game. Those two games were vital in the playoff race. Winning both, had we won both, right now we'd be in a playoff spot. This game would have pushed us over the edge. Instead, we split. We went into this game up 3 on New York. If we lose this game, like alarm bells are ringing. We are tied for dead last, and Minnesota has a 5-point gap on the both of us. Instead, we win. We widen the gap between us and New York to 6 points. And looking at how many games they have left, they got 5 games left. And we have a 6-point lead on them. If we beat them again to go up 9 points and they only have 4 games remaining, that basically is the final blow. I'm actually looking at their regulation wins, and yeah, they basically need everything to go perfect. If we win in regulation on Tuesday, that's it. Game over. Game over. They would need us to win in overtime against Minnesota and lose every other game and have Minnesota lose every game, but it puts them in such a terrible spot that I think they would know, honestly. If they lose in regulation to us on Tuesday, that is their season gone. It's done. You need to deliver that blow. You need to put them out of the race, make it us in Minnesota. Because we had that chance to get leapfrogged over Minnesota. We didn't do it. New York had that chance. With this back-to-back with us, they win both of those games. We go to dead last, and all of a sudden, they're the ones. They're the ones 2 points back of Minnesota. But here's the thing. We showed that we can convincingly beat New York. We have a game in hand on Minnesota and another game against Minnesota. If we beat New York, this would mean that we would have more points in as many games. Or at the very least, if we even win in overtime, we would have the same amount of points and more regulation wins in as many games. A win against New York puts us in a playoff spot. And there were times where it looked like that was it. When we lost to Boston, what did I say? That game between Minnesota and New York was very, very vital. If Minnesota won that, I think that would have probably been it. But we're still in it. We have a chance to completely rewrite the script. Get right back into it. Last season, because this is 24 games. This is where the season ended. If it was the previous season, after 24 games, we would have 33 points. 9 regulation wins, 1 overtime win, which is 1 win better than last season. What was one of the things that I was so mad about? If you watch my final Ottawa Charge video, or I guess PWHL Ottawa video from last season, where I'm dressed like a literal clown, because that's how I felt after watching them blow a easy playoff spot. I said that you couldn't even make a top 10 list of Ottawa games without including a loss because they didn't win 10. This season, that is not the case. We've won 10 games. We've gotten one more point than we did last season. But last season, 35 points made the playoffs. 33 still would have missed. And guess how many points Minnesota has right now? 35. But there was one lingering question for me, which was if we had just another game, if there was even like one more game, would that have been enough? If there was like 6 more games, could we have done it? Now we get to find out. Because after 24 games, we're not in the playoffs. But this time, we have those extra games. If you lose to New York, yes, you're still in it, but it would show to me that we are still that inconsistent team that can't win when it matters most. You have them on the ropes. Finish the job, go up in the standings over Minnesota, and then when you face Minnesota, put them to rest. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule here, and both of us in Minnesota, face each team once, except we face Boston twice, hence the game in hand. We need to beat New York, beat Minnesota, match Minnesota, and win that extra, or get even a point in that extra game. You know, if they lose to Boston and we lose to Boston, and they beat Montreal and we lose to Montreal, and they lose to Toronto and we lose to Toronto, oh, but that extra game against Boston we win, we're still a playoff team. It's not over, and this game is the type of game, in some ways, that you want to see. So let's break it down. The first period I felt was kind of slow. I didn't think much happened. I didn't think either team really set the pace. You can even look at the shots and like it wasn't the period. But a beautiful play by Gabby Hughes on the power play. New York gets a penalty. Nothing happens. We got a penalty. Uh-oh. I hope that doesn't become a little theme. But, again, we kill it off. New York gets a penalty, and on the power play, an amazing play by Hughes, and our power play wasn't looking great up to that point, but a beautiful play by Hughes finds a wide open Brianne Jenner who scores, makes it 1-0 Ottawa, end of the first period. Every time Brianne Jenner has scored a goal, the Charge have gone on to win. Now that, I mean, talk about being a captain. Every time she scores, it's a win. Wow. And she's going to continue the trend. The second period is where again, 5-2, the loss against Boston was 5-2, and they didn't make it even 3-1 until midway through the third. Now, I was felt about that game. This game felt like a good win for Ottawa, but halfway through the second, I was not feeling comfortable. And I was actually about to lose it. And I was thinking, I got to remember this anger if we end up winning. I got to remember this so that I don't sugarcoat, oh, well, we won, so it's okay. It was not okay. We take a penalty, an unneeded penalty, interference. This kill, pretty good. New York had some pressure, but it was a decent kill. Almost immediately after, we took the first penalty a minute 38 seconds into the period. So if you think about it, at 3:38, we killed it off. At 5:25, less than 2 minutes later, we took another penalty. Again, I didn't think it was that necessary, and it was a much more dangerous power play for New York. They almost scored a bunch of times. They had a lot of pressure, and I was thinking, oh my God. I was actually thinking, you borderline take a timeout. It was that much pressure just to reset and just to calm the nerves, don't take bad penalties. And I was like, it's okay. We're learning, right? And then what do? 5:25, we take the penalty, right? That means that 7:25 is when it expires. 9:10, again, less than 2 minutes later, we take another penalty. And this is the worst one. It is a hook that does not need to happen. Doesn't need to happen. It's just not being aware of where your stick is. And I'm not going to call out any of the players because it's been a team problem. I'm looking at the penalties, and yes, Taralova took 2, but in general, it's up and down the roster. And it's a bad penalty, and this time New York scores. They were getting all the pressure, all the momentum, and it finally bites us. And when they tied it, I was thinking this could be the start of something very bad. I was thinking this could be a game-defining, potentially season-defining blunder that we kept taking bad, unnecessary penalties when we saw how good their power play was. It wasn't like it was a shock. It wasn't like our power play was just absolutely dogging them all game and, who cares that we're on the penalty kill? We're doing great. We weren't. We should, that was our 4th penalty and we weren't halfway through the game. You need to have some discipline in these moments. Yes, we went on to win. Yes, the second period, then Vani Shova just went nuclear, scores a goal, and then 2 minutes, I got the exact times. Because I knew the times were important in this game. We score a goal at 15:11, at 17:29. Vani Shova scores her second. She scores 2 goals in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Not even 2:20. And that kind of changed the game. New York ties it. They're feeling good. But it was like, it seemed like this is a convincing Ottawa win. Up until the 15-minute mark, of the second period, it was a tie game. With less than 5 to go in the second is when we scored the goal to make it a 2-1 game, and with less than 3 to go in the second is when we scored the game-winning goal. Yes, scoring the game-winning goal before the third period is good, but let's not act like we were on autopilot for most of the game. There was a good chunk of time deep into the second period where it was unclear who was going to win, who the momentum was going to shift towards, and a big reason for that is that we took too many penalties. And if we have a different game where Vani Shova doesn't go off, this is a very different story, especially because almost immediately into the third, literally just a hair over the 2-minute mark, Abby Rock scores from New York. Now, let me say something here. I was not mad at this goal. You cannot be mad at this goal. It was the first ever Michigan lacrosse goal in PWHL history. No one's stopping it. Gwyneth Phillips, by the way, had an amazing game, a 944 save percentage, 34 saves on 36 shots. She did great. She played lights out. No one's stopping that. Honestly, what I said in my previous video after Nashmeyer's injury, if Phillips plays like this throughout the season, I could see us beating New York. I could see us beating Boston. I could see that. I could see us winning the back-to-back against New York. I could see us winning the back-to-back against Boston. We do that. Just allow yourself to imagine. If Phillips wins this game, wins the game against New York, wins the back-to-back against Boston, and then wins against Montreal, and Minnesota's still in it when we face them. Let's say we're ahead of Minnesota by a point. And we're going into our second last game and their second last game of the season. And Mashmeyer's healthy. Who do you play? I'd go with Phillips. If Phillips plays like this down the stretch, I go with Phillips. But we'll get there when we get there. That's a lot of time and a lot of hockey. And also a whole international tournament break. The back-to-back with Boston isn't a back-to-back like it is with New York. With Boston, wait, no, it is. It's till April 2nd. I got my time. I got my dates wrong. That's what the paper's for. So yeah, between now and April 2nd, short amount of time though, we have a back-to-back New York, back-to-back with Boston. That is huge. And if Phillips plays like she played tonight, I could see us winning all 4 games. That's the thing with this team. I could see us winning all those games, but like I said, after that second period with all those penalties, I could have seen this team losing all 4. Abby Rock scores in Michigan. Let's see. Less than 2 minutes later, guess what happens? Guess who? Do I need to tell you? Vani Shova scores a goal. Throw the hat. Don't worry. Got myself another one. Which is good, because that's her second hat trick of the year. It puts her as the franchise's #1 single season goal scorer. I wouldn't be surprised if she finishes her career as the goal scorer for Ottawa Charge. The #1 all time. She is amazing. Vani Shova is great. I talk about like untouchable players. She is one of them. I think that, a lot of the untouchable players, in my opinion, had big games. Jenner and Rose had really good games. Both of them made the point sheet multiple nights. Rose, have yourself a game. Jenner, have yourself a game. Phillips, have yourself a game. And Teresha Vanishova, have yourself a game. A hat trick again. Second time this season. That puts it away. Even though there was lots of game, that's when it started to feel like, okay, Ottawa's got this. And then at 11:27, less than 10 to go, Emily Clark with a snipe. I love Emily Clark. She is amazing. She is a leader. And she's so fun. Like, listen to the Emily Clark mic'd up. She's the most fun player to watch, to listen to. Emily Clark is very quickly becoming my favorite my favorite player on this team. Very quickly. She scores. Makes it 5-2. At that point, it's game over. Penalty-wise, I should talk about that. New York took a penalty, and I thought, we could bury them, and we don't, but then we bury them with the Emily Clark goal. Then we take, and this is the thing, we take 2 penalties at the end of the game. I'm less mad at this. We take a penalty at 16:33 and 18:38. So basically the final 3.5 minutes, we're just killing a penalty. It's just an uninterrupted penalty kill. The thing is, it's 5-2 against New York. They didn't score their 6-on-4 with the empty netter. I actually thought we were going to get a jailbreak. I thought that, yes, they had chances. We did too. We could have scored a jailbreak. I was getting ready to put that in the script, and it didn't happen. I'm still upset that we took penalties that we didn't need to, needless penalties. Pretty sure one was a delay of game. Yeah, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. But also, the delay of game happened at 18:38. Great, there's a minute and 22 seconds. You're up 3. It's not going to change anything. We won. But I also think that's indicative of you got to play with discipline. Because maybe this game, with a minute and change left, you took a delay of game up 3. But what about when it's tied or you're only up 1? And that delay of game penalty matters a whole lot more. What happens when you're playing not New York? What happens if this happens in a Minnesota game? What if we're tied in the standings? Just tied. And this game could decide who's going to make it. Who's going to make it, who's going to miss. Do you really want to give them that spark, that chance, if you're up by 1? Even if you're up by 2. I think up by 3, and even still, the first penalty, with 3:30 left, the game's probably over. But you give them a power play where they have 2 minutes to pull their goaltender and really get a chance to bury you. Not bury you, bury it. Sorry. Bury it. And they're down 2. They score quickly. That could be 2 minutes and change. And again, then you take a delay of game penalty, and now who knows? Not as bad as the second period where there was still lots of runway left, lots of hockey left to be played, and we take penalties that we don't need to. I'm happy, but like I said, this was part 1. This was part 1. We lose to New York on Tuesday. Who cares? Who cares? Minnesota's still in front, and it's in as many games played. They are firmly in position. We win, even in overtime, even in shootout. And you say, oh, they don't win in overtime. They have 1 overtime win. Guess who it's against? We win in any fashion against New York. We slide into that final playoff spot and become the masters of our own fate. And we need to finally string together wins. I feel like they lose a game, they win a game. They lose a game, they win a game. They lose a game, they lose a game. They win a game, they lose a game. They win a game, they win a game. They lose a game. It's never win, 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 win. 4 games in a row, I think honestly, if we win 4 in a row and beat Minnesota, that would be enough. We could lose to Montreal, lose to Toronto, and those 4 wins in a row and the win against Minnesota, 3 of them could come in overtime or shootout. I still think that would probably be enough. But if in these final, 6 games, if we win 2 and maybe have 1 game go to overtime, I don't think that'll be enough. That's why I'm happy, but I'm not partying yet. You got to finish the job. But if you play like you did today, if Vanny Shover shows up, if the offense shows up, and if we hold back the penalties, and if Phillips plays lights out, we can do that. And as always, go, Ottawa, go!